Hello, this is James Reese for another edition of Razor Wire on another hot and sticky day here in the UK. I think for many reasons I want to talk about supply chain attacks. It's something that we've covered before, but there seems to be a significant uptick in attacks against strategic service providers. Predominantly, there seems to be service providers who provide network functions, remote access, remote services, cloud offerings, uh, anything where one compromise of the service provider means that there's potential for compromise for the customers that they support. Now, we're starting to see quite a few of these. I mean, obviously we had the SolarWinds one at the beginning of the year. We've had a number of other ones that have come to light over the last couple of months. One that I covered recently in my last video, another service provider who got ransomware attacked. It seems to be the attack of choice these days. I don't think that's going away. That's something I mentioned in the other video. But I don't really want to necessarily focus on that. I think we're doing that to death. I think a lot of us who are commentating on this tend to agree that this is here to stay. But I'm getting a lot of people saying, well, why are people, malicious actors as we call them, going for service providers? Well, in all honesty, we have to look at really why the cyber criminals do what they do. A large percentage of them are doing this for money. I'm sure there are some, who are involved in the state for one reason or another. Maybe they're getting paid off to attack certain individuals or certain organisations. I'm sure that does go on. I'm not privy to whether that's a big thing or not. But predominantly it's for money. Now, economies of scale, I think, comes into play here. Service providers for a long time have been a strategic risk for any organisation that is looking to outsource their systems or their services, and outsourcing these to cloud companies, to organisations to manage that kind of infrastructure has been going on for a long, long time now. Back when I was in IT, pretty much everything was on premise. There wasn't any kind of as a service functions, that kind of thing. You might have gotten support from a third party organisation who would send in engineers or network guys to kind of deal with the problem. But there was no kind of as a service function. A lot of it, databases were on premise, or the kit was usually on premise in a computer room or a internal data center. With the advent of cloud computing, it's led a mass exodus of running your own kit where you have full control over the physical and the digital security of it, out to third-party service providers. And third-party service providers aren't always necessarily as secure as you think they are. I've quizzed a number of them, especially in the real early days of cloud. We got in quite early to that particular game on the security side. And I would ask a lot of those early vendors, a lot of them have been bought out and disappeared now, what are you doing about security? And quite often they would answer, we have very good IT people. Well, there's a lot of very good IT people out there. I know a lot of very good IT people who are very good with security. But they're still not security people. Anybody who knows anything about security knows it's about the people, the processes, and technology. You can't just kind of cover the technological aspect and think that you're going to be completely covered. It does not work that way. Sure, technology is a very, very large key part of security because that's the medium that we use to communicate, to collaborate, to build systems and services around what we do to provide to our customers, unless you're doing something like manufacturing or something like that. But even then, you are very reliant on software and solutions to help manufacture whatever it is you're manufacturing en masse. Technology has kind of infected every aspect of our lives. I do vaguely remember a time when there was no such things really as mobile phones. They weren't mass adopted. There was a few out there on the market, but they came with a giant, great big battery, which was pretty hardcore to lug around. Over time, that got better, the technology got better, but it was still predominantly green screen, and texts were a bit of a nightmare to do. Fast forward to where we are now, everybody has a smartphone. Everybody I know has a smartphone. I don't think I've seen anything other than smartphones for a long, long time now. And they become intrinsic in our lives. Procuring services that are managed by third parties has also scaled up. Now that we're used to a lot more mobile working, well, on-premise stuff is kind of hard to do. It's expensive to do if you're doing it yourself. You can get economies of scale and you can make things cheaper by going to a third party. Look at Azure, look at AWS, look at any one of the big cloud companies. And for a fraction of the cost of having something on-premise, you can build your environment in a virtual way to facilitate your business need. Or your personal need, let's face it. But the problem with doing that is you are very reliant on the security of that third party. If that third party suffers some form of a breach, then there's every possibility that you may have some form of loss or security event or incident that will also affect you. So what can we do about this? Well, we can follow the traditional defense in depth way of building our systems and our services. We can do things like multi-factor authentication, we can encrypt our data, we can encrypt the instances that our environments reside within. There's all kinds of cool technology now that can kind of secure that technical element. But there's always the risk that, the root system or service that facilitates these becomes compromised. And if you've got kind of admin access to that low-end underpinning virtual estate, then there is the good possibility you will have some form of access to the estates that reside within it. You could turn them on, turn them off, get into them feasibly. There's all kinds of things that you can do. So third parties have become a significant security asset in our asset chain, mainly because without that third party operating efficiently and effectively, we don't have our solutions working efficiently and effectively. If they become compromised, we potentially become compromised. Is it easy to migrate from one third-party solution to another third-party in the event of a compromise? No, not really, because there's a mass of data and systems that need to be migrated from where they are currently residing to another estate. So the best way to mitigate the cost of that kind of thing is to undertake security audits for your service providers. Now, if you're a smaller organization, that's going to be a lot harder to do. But if you're a larger organization with some push and some pull, you will have probably an assigned account manager or an account team that will look after your account needs, from a relationship perspective. So one thing that I always recommend to any of my decent sized customers is when you're drawing out the contract with that third party for them to, provide you with these systems, these services, maybe managed services on top, that you always ensure that there is a right to audit in that contract. What do we mean by right to audit? Well, without getting into the legals of it, there's a lot of other legal people out there who are probably going to be much better at telling you how to word that contract or what type of wording you need to put in it. But in essence, the right to audit from a security standpoint means that a CISO, your organization's information security professional, will contractually have the right to go to the third party security people and say, right, tell us how you're doing your security. Tell us how you're maintaining it. Tell us whether or not you've got certifications like ISO 27001, PCI DSS, so on and so forth, whatever that requirement may be. And you will have the right to do a level of auditing against them to ensure that they have at least a level of security that you accept or in line with your own security countermeasures, defense in depth, and so on and so forth. Third-party suppliers have always really been a bit of a weak link in that chain. I say up until now, they still are, evidently. One compromise to a service provider can have an impact on thousands, hundreds of customers of theirs that are using their systems and their services. And it brings on board all kinds of awkward questioning, like, well, you've had a compromise. How far reaching is it? Has it affected us? Is it going to affect us in the future? What are you going to do about securing the environment? You can't just turn around and say, as a third party, we've got good IT people, we've got good security people. We are rapidly reaching a point, and it's definitely in there with things like PCI DSS. If you look at requirement 12, there's a requirement for you to ensure that you've done your due diligence on your third parties, that their security is in line with the PCI DSS standard by way of asking them for an attestation of compliance or some kind of assurance. And I think that's only right, and I think that's going to continue going forward. We're seeing a lot of people building services on platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service. Everything's becoming as a service. We've even got one or two as a service sort of management offerings as well ourselves. So don't be frightened when you're looking at your third parties to start asking them about how they're securing their environment. And don't just accept palliatives. Do proper due diligence. Okay, if you are secure, how are you securing our infrastructure? They may not tell you everything. Obviously, they're going to have trade secrets that they don't necessarily want to give out, IP, network diagrams, low-level infrastructure diagrams, whatever. And you might not get a chance to see those. But you can at least have conversations to allow you to become happy that that third party is not the weak link in your chain, okay? I mean, there's the old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I say that a lot about defense in depth. Don't use one product or don't rely on one product for a plethora of your security. Layer products appropriately. Same thing in security. You layer your security. So you have policies and procedures, and then you have technical countermeasures, security awareness programs, security governance procedures like incident response, that kind of thing, risk management, knowing your risks, that kind of thing. And when you're doing that, always set aside a bit of time to look at your key third-party suppliers and service providers and establish what would occur if there was an outage, a downage, or some kind of security event or data compromise for that critical vendor of yours, to ensure that you not only protecting your environment, your data appropriately, but you're not allowing it to be exfiltrated out, like seems to be the big one at the moment, and then released on, as dirty laundry for all and sundry to see. There's multiple ways to do that. I've already mentioned a number of them, both in this video and other videos before. I think definitely encryption is definitely a key there, But always make sure that you include your third parties as part of your security program and your security strategy. And do your due diligence when engaging with a new service provider. If you've got legacy service providers that go back many years that have never really experienced a security audit, take the time to undertake a security review of what they're offering. So you can at least know what risks they are providing to you, warts and all. Now, again, as I said, don't just rely on a simple conversation of, are you secure? Yes, of course we are. But start getting a security professional to ask in-depth, more detailed questions to kind of build a picture of whether or not that organization or service provider to you is providing you secure services that you can, without a shadow of a doubt, be happy, isn't going to go over, isn't going to get ransomware, isn't going to suffer a compromise in some form or another, or an outage. So just make sure you do your due diligence. And if you are a third party, you've got to take security seriously. I say this a lot. I know I say this in all of my videos. I'm a security person. Of course, I'm going to say security is key. But unfortunately for you service providers who are watching this, it is key. It is important. Because if you look back over the last year and you can see the howlers and the media reporting on these types of events, then put some money into security. Do it right. Do it properly. Can you ever be 100% secure? No, you can't. It doesn't work that way. But you can go a damn far, long way to protecting yourself and your customers, because you don't want to be the next service provider who's blasted all over the internet for being insecure. It's not a great way of keeping customers, to be totally honest. Everybody, look after yourselves, especially if you're in the UK suffering through this heat. I know we talk about the weather a lot in the UK, but normally it's because our weather's rubbish. It's not rubbish today, but it's hotter than hell out there. So you look after yourselves, keep hydrated, and we'll be speaking soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.